What is up, y'all? We're back for yet another Sunday Satoshi Live with my good friend, the madman himself, Bitcoin Ben. What's good, my man?
It's all good. Just hanging out. It's a beautiful Sunday here in Kentucky, and looking forward to spending a few minutes talking about, some crazy financial news and some Bitcoin
and CBDCs and all that. We're getting started here. Let's do it properly and let the folks know that we're getting started at block number 776,215. And as always, we're going to go over a few metrics, look at the current hash rate. We're currently still sitting above 300 exahash, just a massive amount of bullish hash power deployed to the Bitcoin network, keeping it nice and secure.
You love to see that.
You just love to see it. That's what I'm saying. And we also just had a difficulty adjustment. It was kind of a non-difficulty adjustment today. So we're currently 56 blocks into the current epoch. The
era.
And we're 56 blocks in. We had kind of a non-adjustment of negative adjustment, actually, of 49 basis points. So, kind of a nice, a nice adjustment, letting the miners, maybe kind of catch a breath. We'll see. Hash price is currently sitting at, where are we at on the hash price? We're at 7.2 cents per terahash. So still hovering around the 7-cent range. And the hash value is 328 Satoshis per terahash per day. So still stacking away. And we are like pretty close to the next halving. We're a year, 49 days out. So like the next halving is coming up on us. The halving is coming. Brace yourselves. So times are interesting, folks, and it wouldn't be a Sunday Satoshi Live if we didn't have a simultaneous Satoshi sip. What are you drinking on, Ben?
I've got the usual good old fashioned coffee.
You love to see it. I got coffee too. I've got a Guinness coffee porter.
Oh, cool.
That my mom brought over.
Nice.
So
cheers, Mom.
Cheers, Mom. She's actually on a flight right now.
Heading back home.
Yeah, so bid her the safest of travels.
Safe travels.
Yeah, buddy. So this is a little frothy, but simultaneous sip, my friend. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. All right, so let's get to it. We're going to talk about CBDCs. We read, I should say. Ben, did you read the whole thing?
I've read the first half, and I'm scanning the second half that I did not read thoroughly.
So we are going to review Bitcoin Magazine's opinion article about Nigeria basically forcing people onto a CBDC. And I think that is, I think it's a slippery slope, obviously, but I think that it's not just Nigeria. We're also going to read straight out of the horse's mouth. We're going to read the WEF's their paper called "Can Central Bank Digital Currencies Help Stabilize Global Financial Markets?" So it's not just Nigeria. There's over 100 countries working on CBDCs, and they're coming. They're coming in hot and heavy. And I think, and this is what I titled the video, this Satoshi Live. I titled it "CBDCs versus Bitcoin. Pick your fighter." Because I think that you are basically going to have to kind of figure out where you want to be on the spectrum of freedom or servitude, indefinite servitude. as you know, like basically, as I would say, like if you're going to go on these CBDCs, I think CBDCs are all about control personally. And I think that agenda is pretty obvious and clear through the technology. Are you with me? You're glitching out, bro.
I'm back. Things got glitchy for a moment, but I think we're good.
Cool. So let's get started with the the article, or the Bitcoin Magazine opinion segment on Nigeria. So basically, Nigeria is Africa's most populous country, and and also it's worth noting that like the Bitcoin adoption rate is highest in Africa. If you're looking at like where is using Bitcoin the most, and where the most new addresses coming from, and where on-chain activity, it's in Africa. And that's because, well, I mean, they have a great use case for the technology. And let's look at Nigeria in particular, where where basically they have come out with the e their fiat currency is called the naira, and it's just been an absolute train wreck. This social experiment where their central bank is forcing people onto their central bank digital currency, and obviously CBDC stands for central bank digital currency. And before we get into the article, let me point out what makes, or let me ask you, Ben, because maybe you know the answer, maybe you don't.
Okay.
What makes the difference? Because we know that cash is mainly digital already. Like, we already know that most money is not physical. It's not like banks are sitting on stacks of paper notes, and then when you go to the bank, they just pull the paper notes out of the vault. That's obviously not how it works. They have a very slim reserve of cash.
Right.
And if
I'm
you
sure
need
99 to 99.9% of dollar transactions are going on digitally now already.
Yeah, I mean, money's already digital. Besides a very, very small fraction of cash. So what's the difference between the fiat system that we currently have versus, and TransZ is coming in here. I see you, T. Banks can't even give you a 30K nowadays. Yeah, you got to call in advance. You got to give them fair warning well in advance for them to have any of your money available.
30K, that's pretty pathetic. That's like, nothing compared to what they actually, control. And even if you divide it up, by location or by the customers of an individual branch location, that's like pennies.
100%. So, the point is that of all the money that exists in the ecosystem, a very, very small amount is in actual cash. The banks operate on a fractional reserve standard, where before they could only lend out 10-1, but now it's even that since COVID. Now let's be clear about, because it is very convenient. It's since COVID that they lifted the restrictions on on how much they could have as fractional reserve. So that was actually a measure that came out as an emergency measure. You start to notice a pattern where it's the emergency measures are, really, it has a lot to do with just kind of preserving the banking system. But I digress. Obviously cash is already really scarce in the economy. Like, and so what's the difference between our already digital money and a CBDC? Do you know, Ben? Let's hear
it. The current dollars that are traded digitally can also be in some amounts to physical cash that can be transported, anonymously and transacted, off records. But I would think that the CBDCs must be, secured in a way that they cannot be physically or anonymously, moved or transacted. Even if 99.9% of dollar transactions already are, secured in all those ways, they want to have complete, complete power, complete, lack of privacy for all the people that are using their currency.
Yeah. So one thing I will point out is I saw this. This was actually published by the Bank of England, and they said on their webpage, official webpage, they said, would the digital pound be just another cryptocurrency? And they say no. They say, quote, you may have heard of crypto assets like Bitcoin and Ether, quote, they are issued by private companies, full stop, unquote. Mm-hmm. And I just thought how kind of astoundingly ignorant that statement is when it comes to Bitcoin.
Yeah, they shouldn't lie. They shouldn't lie about Bitcoin like that. That's uncool.
Right. And later on it says a 10 pound of the digital pound would be the same as a 10 pound banknote. So theoretically they are going to allow for perhaps the continuation of cash. Is that a possibility? And also it is worth noting that like governments have been trying to make cash illegal for over a decade. Like it's been a very long time that they've been trying to make cash illegal in one way or another, and also reducing like banknote denominations. So like you can only spend the smaller denominations. For example, in England, like there's not the 50-pound note. Like they still have the 50-pound note up in Scotland, but it's all just like small. Or is it the 100-pound note? I think it's the 50-pound note too. But it's it's the reduction where you can only use petty cash, and effectively you touched on it earlier. Like it's about control and it's about noting, who does what and them getting all up in our business all the time.
Yeah, it seems to be a trend here in the States that, corporations, a lot of them seem to like be saying, we no longer will accept bills larger than a 20 due to the potential of counterfeit, is what they claim. But it seems like an awful widespread, trend. And I can't imagine that, every single fast food restaurant has a, massive counterfeit problem.
Right. And I do want to jump in and dive into this article, but also whatever happened to legal tender? I mean, it seems as if the restrictions as of late have been used to kind of just wipe away legal tender laws. And I think it's paving the way for CBDCs, and I think that that's fairly obvious. But let's look at this article where it's already happening in Nigeria. So basically, they have restricted bank withdrawals. They've limited cash withdrawals to about $225 worth of naira, and they've placed a daily limit of about $45 worth of naira, which I'd imagine there is more money than $45 would be, to the average American, but
still doesn't sound like something you can go, transact in like properties or vehicles or assets with,
or any real assets, right? So people, there's videos all over Twitter and stuff of people like breaking into ATMs. People still want cash. They still want the cash for, I'd imagine, a lot of different reasons. But it's chaos really, and they got some first person kind of testimony as to what the situation is like there, and it's interesting. So they quote the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, who says a few interesting things that actually line up with the WEF article as well. And there's a common theme, which is they say that we need to be at pace with where the world is moving, period, unquote. And the question is, like, where is the world moving, right? These central bankers, I think, whether you listen to Christine Lagarde, who's, of the ECB, or whether you listen to, the IMF or the World Bank or the Bank of International Settlements, it seems like they know that they need to get ahead of something. It seems like they know that there may very well be a massive collapse, which seems pretty obvious at the rate that they've been printing money, and now they're trying to get inflation under control, which I think is a complete joke. But it seems like they're trying to get ahead of something, and my question would be, what are they trying to get ahead of? I think I've got a clue, but maybe maybe it's something else. It seems to me like it's Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
Well, that would be fascinating behind the scenes speculation, and or just potentially a better understanding of the inevitable or something like that.
Right, inevitable. I love that word. It's one of my favorite words, because inevitable is like a math word. It's like, eventually you are going somewhere. It's like we are going somewhere for sure. There's no avoiding it.
Right. It's like
and when you listen to
word.
When you listen to these central bankers or people that are involved in the finance industry at high levels, and you listen to what they're saying, like they do talk in terms of like, oh, we are developing CBDCs, as we'll see in this other article. We're developing it, and we need to work in coordination and cooperation. And they just use such like creepy language about how they're coordinating it for interoperability. And they need interoperability because it's political. They need interoperability because they need to work with different jurisdictions and different regions that have their own political agendas. At the end of the day, it comes down to their own political agendas.
Right.
And it doesn't have to do with supplying people with a good money. It does not have to do with what's best for the people. It has to do everything to do with what's the best for the bankers and the politicians. Mm-hmm. Let's make no mistake about it.
Yeah, they want to make sure it's convenient for them, that they can control money, but they're not concerned about those factors for the people that they're trying to force these strange currencies and policies onto.
100%. And it's like they're like, don't worry, we're doing everything with your safety in mind, and this is all for your own good. And then they're also like, don't look over here. There's the cryptocurrencies are dangerous, and you don't want to learn about them because they're made by private companies, which is complete hogwash in Bitcoin's case, because there is no company behind Bitcoin. It's completely decentralized. It's a decentralized ledger that they can't control, and that's why they hate it.
Mm-hmm. It'd be like the world's most impossible game of whack-a-mole if they ever tried to actually go for it.
I believe so. Yeah, Bitcoin's a hydra. You cut one head off, and 5 more heads pop up somewhere else.
Right.
And
so there's already thousands and thousands of heads.
Yes, indeedy. Run your own node, folks. Run your own node. It feels good.
Nice.
So, the situation on the ground in Nigeria right now is gradually moving from banking the unbanked. That was how it was sold. Hey, we're going to roll this out so we can help the unbanked. But in reality, it's noted that it's actually unbanking the banked. Like people, people are growing dissatisfied with this system that they're being forced onto, and the force is so obvious. Like when you have to stop people and you say, "Look, you can only, you're very limited in how much money you can tank out." Whether it's Argentina or any of these places, like it's so clear that they're trying to control a situation that's out of control,
Mm-hmm.
and they're using force. Like if you have to use force, you know, and they're saying like, oh, we're doing this for your own good, that we're limiting your transactions and not allowing you, to your own money. It's just kind of obviously, again, it's obviously politics.
Yeah. Peak gaslighting and manipulation.
Word. So let's see. The e-Naira has, it says 0.5% adoption in Nigeria. Again, people are scrambling to get their cash. There's people breaking into ATMs. They're paying massive, massive, massive premiums to get their hands on their own money,
Mm-hmm.
because real money is trading at a premium over this bullshit CBDC. And circling back on the question that I asked you before about like what's the difference, another interesting difference between the digital fiat that we already use when we tap our cards at the gas station or whatever, it's already digital. One notable difference is that with CBDCs, there's really no need for commercial banks. So the government can issue CBDCs directly to people's wallets, and it makes it makes the commercial bank somewhat irrelevant. They're able to cut out the middleman of the central banks, again consolidating the power amongst banking to just one central bank. Like, if you think of fiat, like how, so Bitcoin is decentralized. There's thousands of nodes all over the world, and those are the those keep the decentralized ledger, which is Bitcoin.
Right.
How many nodes are there in the fiat system? Like
Maybe
I think it's
one,
interesting to think of central banks are nodes.
Yeah, they've got one node in each country, and then maybe a few sub nodes.
Yeah, crazy. So reading on this article, reading on, they got some more kind of testimony from people on the ground about the situation, and interestingly enough, people are turning to Bitcoin, and they're dealing in peer-to-peer. So kind of like barter, I guess. People are able to still transact using Bitcoin, and I'd imagine Bitcoin is selling for quite a premium for whatever someone is willing to accept. If they're willing to sell their Bitcoin, I'd imagine they would need something quite valuable in exchange. But this is an interesting quote, that Bitcoin will always find a way out for us amidst all restrictions. Although we had low access to cash over the counter, we keep pulling the peer-to-peer transactions through with Bitcoin and Tether using our existing conventional ways. So people are finding ways, but I thought this was really interesting. He said if vendors were open to accepting Bitcoin payments, we wouldn't have to deal with all the craziness happening in the country. So it's the vendors, it's like businesses that need to learn how to use Bitcoin, that would speed up adoption, because people can figure it out. It's, for some reason, it takes businesses longer. and that probably has a lot to do with taxes and regulation and blah blah
Yeah.
blah. But
They're a lot more concerned about having one location where somebody can come in and screw up what you got going on if you're not playing by the rules.
yeah, and that's always the case, right?
Right.
But down there, in Nigeria, like, you got to do what you got to do, and if money's failing in the streets, they say that money's being sold for money, and those who do get cash are paying extreme exorbitant fees to get their own cash. I mean, money's literally failing, so you got to do what you got to do, and um, Bitcoin, allows for it's value transfer technology, and it works. It works with near perfect efficiency. Just check out. I mean, I could sit here and look at the mempool like all day. It's just so cool. Like, you see people. I was showing my mom the other day. I'm like, look, this is like $50 million worth of Bitcoin. Final settlement achieved on average. It's going to take 10 minutes, and the fees to move like $50 million worth of Bitcoin is less than $1. I'm like,
that's pretty amazing.
I'm like, how do you argue with that efficiency?
Peer-to-peer, efficient, secure, hard to beat.
So, few more things on the Bitcoin Magazine article.
I think it's interesting how you read the quote from that central banker in Nigeria or whatever, saying that we want to prepare to go or where the world is already going or something like that.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, they seem to be like the test case or the tip of the spear, and then it basically just runs into a brick wall and explodes into a bunch of like black market, orange market chaos.
Wow.
And other other solutions.
This is what I'm saying.
Through that brick wall.
This is what I'm saying, and I think that's exactly right. And I think at the end of the day, if they're going to push us on the CBDCs, they know that things are moving quickly. They know that Bitcoin adoption is happening faster than the internet itself. They know that people are learning about this, and they need to do something about it. And that something is use force. Like, their option is just like in Nigeria, they're going to try to force people to use CBDCs. They're going to try to kill the on ramps and the off ramps to freedom money and Bitcoin, and
Right.
that's their one tool. Their one tool is to use force.
Right.
So
yeah, they also seem to be, the government's also masters of unforeseen consequences and creating, trying to solve one problem and then creating 5 more while doing that. And so I feel like they kind of know that. They know that if they try to squash something with force, that there's going to be reactions and consequences that are undesirable for them. So they're constantly trying to play like a balance game of what can we get away with, how can we spin it to not drum up more resistance, more anger, more momentum in this direction that we're trying to stop right now. And it'll be fascinating seeing how they do respond and how people who are just trying to live decent lives respond.
Absolutely. And I'm here for it. And that's why we're doing like this show. And that's why, I'm interested in connecting with people that are interested in preserving liberty financially and otherwise.
Right.
And the hopeful kind of takeaway from a situation like Nigeria is, hey, at least people are starting to learn more about how to take control of their assets, and hopefully that continues. Like, hopefully people do continue to learn more about it and spread the word. And so let's move on to the World Economic Forum can central bank digital currencies help stabilize global financial markets? I'm sure that they have our best interests at heart. Let's go ahead and dive into that. CBDCs are being explored in over 100 countries, including Nigeria, where things are kind of falling apart economically. Now, this is interesting because they said that inflation hit a 40-year high last year, according to Pew Research, and their analysis of 44 advanced economies, the majority had substantial increases in consumer prices since pre-pandemic levels. Mm-hmm. So they point out how, and they paint a picture about how cryptos are kind of scary and how $2 trillion has been wiped out in the Luna Terra and the FTX collapse, Celsius, Three Arrows Capital, and the like. They failed to point out that SBF was quite friendly with the WEF.
He was friendly with all of the slimiest, powerful people.
Right. But anyways, moving along swiftly from that point, there's a lot of volatility. And check this out. They say this over and over, that CBDCs are the priority. They say that CBDC was chosen as the key tech innovation challenge. So they're working with banks like Barclays and crypto projects like Ripple to figure out effectively how they can create their own digital currencies. And it's interesting because I saw an article where they're calling the digital pound, they say that it's unlike cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. They say that the fiat CBDC is without risk. Mm-hmm. And that's an interesting thing to say because literally nothing's without risk.
Right.
And, matter of fact, that's also what was in some of the angel investor stack that was in FTX, is they were saying, oh, this is without risk. Literally right. Using that term is so negligent and irresponsible.
Just like all of the scams that I've gotten in my, DMs. Oh, no risk. Just send me your Bitcoin and I will send you, 200 or 300% returns within, 48 hours.
For sure. I'm still waiting on Michael Saylor to shoot me back. He said he was going to send me a few Bitcoin. I'm still waiting on that.
Was it actually Michael Saylor?
I'm sure it was. It must have been.
Oh, okay. But he was joshing around with you or something, maybe.
Don't get scammed, like bros. That. Don't get scammed. If you get scammed, you can't blame anybody. And this is the thing. There's no lender of last resort in Bitcoin or crypto for that matter. Nobody's going to bail you out, bros. It's about right. responsibility. And if you get scammed, you can't run and cry to the Federal Reserve to bail you out. That's right. How it is.
You got to be responsible for the security of your sovereign assets.
So, looking at this WEF thing, it shows that most CBDC projects are in the research phase. Some are in the proof of concept and pilot phase, and then very, very, very few are launched. So I think that these central banks are behind the curve on these projects. And just remembering from what I've heard, they talk about it oh, we need to catch up. And I think they realize that they're behind the curve, especially when it comes to user adoption of alternative assets like Bitcoin.
Yeah,
I think they are behind the curve, and I think they know it. I think they're going to have to really, I guess you could say, staged collapse of the financial of the economy. I mean, they're going to have to really stage a spectacular collapse and force people into CBDCs, if you ask me.
Yeah, I'm sure there's probably a slightly terrifying reason that Klaus has told us about the next cyber pandemic or whatever. They have to find some kind of big event to attempt to spin towards their ends.
Catch this. So in this section called Innovation in a Time of Instability, they say that whether it's a reaction to current market conditions, an increasing belief in the potential of the technology, or the desire not to be left behind in this innovation exploration, there's a clear signal from central banks that CBDC is a top priority. So again, they're saying, look, CBDCs is our top priority. Why? And they gave 3 reasons here. It's a reaction to current market conditions, increasing belief in the potential of the technology, and a desire not to be left behind. The question is, behind what, right?
Right.
And why are they so concerned with people that are starting to believe in the potential of alternative technology? Well, maybe because the fiat system is an antiquated, dying dinosaur that's been used to kind of keep the boot on people's neck for a very long time.
Right. And it's funny when they mention the technology as if, Bitcoin, altcoins, and CBDCs are all, one thing that's functioning the same, but none of them are the same. Bitcoin is decentralized. Other cryptos utilize, sure, crypto and blockchain technology, but maybe can't be trusted, and are bound, to the same things that are going to inevitably happen, certainly with CBDCs. And then CBDCs, are controlled by, the same kind of group, except one that claims to have, authority over, what you can and can't transact in.
Yeah, and let's just call it what it is. It is a state-sanctioned monopoly. Like it's so obvious that they're just interested in preserving their own power to print money, and they don't want competition. Like
Right.
any good monopoly, they're going to do everything they can to prevent competition by any means necessary.
Mm-hmm.
So
For sure.
and it's interesting. They say that it says that they say that central banks are facing challenging times. I thought that was an interesting way to look at it, because central banks are facing challenging times. Ben, did you know that? Central banks are facing challenging times.
I think it's always challenging times because they have a dysfunctional model for managing the economy or monetary systems.
Yeah. Also, I just thought it's funny because we're supposed to feel bad for the central banks?
Oh, boohoo! I'm so sorry. And then at the same time, they talk about like signals from the bank as if like the bank is some oracle, all powerful, on the hill. We don't, we have to wait for the bells to ring this way or the smoke to come out at this time in this color to
100%.
Tell us the almighty, what's going to happen from the all powerful central bank.
Yeah, so like I saw this funny meme. By the way, I think we should add a section to the Satoshi Live where we do like a couple memes of the week. Like we pick a couple of the dankest memes.
Yeah, we need to.
We're gonna tighten things up around here, folks. We're gonna be able to do all kinds of fancy stuff. But I saw this funny meme where it was like the old like Simpsons grandpa, and it was like, I remember the time when we all used to wait for an old guy to tell us the price of money. Lynn Alden tweeted this meme a few weeks ago, and
nice.
And like we literally like the Pope, like puffs of smoke. We wait for Jerome Powell to kind of come out and tell us what the price of money is, and the whole stock market, the whole economy trades on this system, like waiting for some guy to tell us the interest rate.
Right.
Yeah. Anyways,
pretty funny.
It's ridiculous. It's clown world caliber. But
Right.
But let's get through this article real quick and wrap it up. So an opportunity for global cooperation. Again, they say that each country, quote unquote, has a different motive for implementation, and they place a lot of value on the interoperability of various CBDCs. Question is, like, why do we need, there's only one gold. Why do we need a bunch of different fiat currencies? Right? Like
Right.
why don't we just have money? Why don't we just have good money that doesn't, that our politicians don't rob us through inflation and otherwise? Like,
Well,
wouldn't it be cool if we just had good money?
That would be so cool.
I mean,
but yeah,
I think so.
One thing I wanted to make a quick point of that's just funny is the title. I've heard a rule among journalists that anytime a headline ends in a question mark, it can be answered by the word no. Can central bank digital currencies help stabilize global financial markets? It would seem from the utter chaos and collapse of things in Nigeria that the answer is clearly no.
Yeah, and I also think that we shouldn't look at the situation in Nigeria and say, like, oh, that could never happen here.
Right.
Like, it most certainly can, and I think it will happen here if we don't educate ourselves. And math is math. Math applies in Nigeria as much as it applies in Japan, as much as it applies in America or anywhere else. Math is math, and you print too much money, things look like Zimbabwe. And so,
amen. And Klaus is, literally telling us that, they're planning on it happening here. So be interesting how that plays out.
They're literally putting out stuff telling us exactly where we're going. So this is why I'm like, how can people not spend, a substantial amount of time figuring out how to secure their life energy and their wealth and their assets and their family's future? I think it's the most important thing, and this is exactly why I'm like, Ben, we need to do like a little live show on Sunday, and we need to talk about this stuff. So I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Unless you've got anything else to add, my friend.
Nope. I gotta bounce here in a second myself, and but looking forward to assembling some materials and some memes for next week.
Let's do it, dude. I appreciate your time. Thanks everybody for tuning in. You can find Ben on Instagram or anywhere on Twitter. Ben's tweeting on Bitcoin Twitter. Thanks for joining us
for LeNeave.
Yes, sir. So thanks for joining us for another Sunday Satoshi Live. Keep stacking sats and staying humble. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.
Peace, Colby. Thanks, man.
Ciao.